Johannesburg, a book by Paul Duncan and Alain Proust, provides unique insights to some of Johannesburg's most fascinating and unique buildings. Northward is nestled right here at the top of Parktown, dates way back to 1904. Dr. Neil Viljoen, custodian of this property, helps us unlock some of this home's fascinating past.
In 1892, and is then responsible for a large number of houses, churches, schools, and so on here in South Africa. A lot of them in Johannesburg, but also Cape Town, of course. And then the first owners of the house were people called Dale Lace. And they engaged Baker in 1902 to design a house for them on the site. And here you can see some of it, with the main hall here. 1911, the house burnt down. And then it coincided with the loss of their fortune. And the house was then bought by a second very rich mining magnate.
Wow, but I can see how it's still got that very same resemblance. How does this building still get utilized in today's world?
All right, when the house was restored, the idea was to turn it into a living monument. In other words, not a museum. It had to live. And so we have tenants in some of the offices. They have to be cultural, educational tenants. I live here, of course. And then we have tours for international tourists to South Africa. But we also have, for example, regular tours by school children to kind of suggest that this is part of Johannesburg's heritage, even though it's this great 52-roomed mansion.
We had the opportunity to catch up with the author of Hidden Johannesburg down in Cape Town.
We've got some very early buildings, and we've taken it right up until the 1960s. The extraordinary thing about downtown Johannesburg is that, to a large degree, it could be read as a microcosm of early to middle 20th century architecture, and a lot of those buildings still survive. So that was really what very roughly guided us in our building selection. So we've got churches, mercantile buildings, there's the Rand Club, there are cathedrals, the cathedral, there's the Greek Orthodox Cathedral, there's a synagogue, there are some of the big Baker mansions, Herbert Baker mansions. There are buildings which have particular artistic accomplishment about them. So there's Eduardo Villa's own house and studio. We've got banks. It's a huge mixture of buildings.
Paul thinks Alain Proust's photographs, in many cases, are never seen before pictures that do the buildings justice.
And we focused on sculpture, we focused on mostly the interiors, there's always an exterior. We've tried to put a little bit of the context of the building in, so what does the street look like? Where is it? Turns out most of the buildings are in downtown Johannesburg, in Doornfontein and Bromfontein.
Paul's favorite chapter is the one on the St. Charles Borromeo Church in Victory Park. He made a surprising discovery researching the architect.
And I hunted everywhere for the architect. I couldn't find who built it. I walked around the building to see if I could find a plaque on the building to find the architect. Absolutely nothing. Eventually, at the end of the book, at the end of my researches, I discovered actually that the architect was my father. I had absolutely no idea. And the attention to detail inside this building made me look at him in a slightly new light. I had absolutely no idea he'd done it. And then when I looked at all the other information about the church and where the design influence had come from, I could see similarities with Frederick Gibbard's cathedral in Liverpool, and there's a cathedral in Brasilia, which they all have the same shape. And somewhere at the back of my mind, I could remember that my grandfather was a friend of Sir Frederick Gibbard, who did the Liverpool Cathedral. So there's quite a nice continuity and a narrative through some quite well-known architects, which resulted in this church in Victory Park. And here it is in Johannesburg. It's our architectural patrimony. We really should be celebrating it.
Hello, my cousins. I'm Barry Hilton, and you are watching Joburg Today.
Make sure to catch up with us on our social media platforms. On Twitter, it's @Joburg Today, and Facebook, it's joburgtoday.tv. Wow. So, Neil, how do you utilize all this history and legacy today?
All right. The most important thing is that it has to stay a live place. It has to be used. And so this room, for example, the main hall of the house, we use for the last 17 years now for classical music recitals once a month.
Oh.
But also it forms the central point of the tours that we have of the house. There is no use having a building like this in a city like Johannesburg if it is not for the people of Johannesburg. It has to be something that people feel that they can own as their own. Otherwise, buildings like this fall into decay, and once that happens, they get demolished, and that's the end of a whole slice of history of a house and of people, and a whole slice out of Johannesburg.
Alain Proust is the photographer who worked really close with Paul Duncan for Hidden Johannesburg.
Johannesburg is changing so much. It's always evolving. It's buzzing. You can see in the old city the part that is west of Loveday Walk. You can see there's still quite a lot of really nice buildings that are being kept quite well. But the further east you go in Commissioner Street, the more decay you can see and the more life you can see. It's really vibrant. It's an amazing city. Of course, the suburbs are what they are, but for me, the real experience was the center of town, of the old town. But I think we did a lot of groundwork to find the places we did, and it was really exciting to explore the town, the center of town mainly. My worst experience was photographing the old fort, the old jail. It's actually, I got the creeps in there. I really didn't like it. You can see that people have suffered, and it's really creepy. I wouldn't, as a tourist, go there and have a look. It's maybe important to see it, but it wasn't a pleasant experience at all. It was not nice. The most surprising was this one here, the Park Station, which was it's sublime inside there, and there are squatters in there, and you can see the potential of restoration, and you can see that nobody cares about it. There's a police station just outside, but doesn't prevent the squatters to get into there and destroying what's left. I hope somebody will do something about it one day.
History comes to life in Northward. So, to experience a lot more of this, make sure to get your hands on Hidden Johannesburg. I'm Lebogang Makutu, and this is Joburg Today.